A close-up on healer Rina, who is suddenly and shockingly banished from her party. The words come from the hero Charles, her childhood friend, who delivers the news with a stern expression. His party members, a shocked red-haired girl named Shaun and a smirking warrior named Adele, stand behind him. Rina is left completely stunned by this declaration. The story then flashes back to their mission. The party, including Charles, Adele, Shaun and Rina, was standing at the dark, rocky entrance of Angus's dungeon. Their goal, assigned by the Crown Prince of Hirtia Kingdom a month prior, was to investigate monster movements. As they ventured inside, Adele whistled, boasting they were the first party to ever get this far. Rina, being cautious, worried that whistling might attract monsters and thought they should avoid pointless fights, while Shaun told Adele to stop. Rina cast a lighting spell to illuminate the path, and Charles smiled, telling everyone to move forward. In the back, Adele and Shaun whispered about Rina, sarcastically calling her the Great Saint and Mighty Saint Rina, who was special and shouldn't be bothered. Rina heard them and thought they were being unusually prickly, but she reaffirmed to herself that healing was her duty and she always did her job. Suddenly, danger appeared as something glowed red. Shaun shouted a warning just as Rina saw the glint of an attack heading for Charles. Rina gasped and pushed Charles to safety, taking the hit herself and collapsing. When Rina finally woke up, she was lying in an inn's bed. A doctor had told her she was attacked by a monster and couldn't rejoin the party until she recovered. It took 10 days before she could move again. It was then in the inn room that she asked Charles what he meant by banished. Charles, standing near the window, coldly told her it was because she was useless. The other party members joined in the accusations. Adele smirked, saying Rina just took it easy in the back and even accused her of faking the monster attack to rest. Shaun chimed in, complaining that Rina made a super tired face, while healing her and should quit if she hated the job. Rina tried to defend herself, explaining that the more recovery magic she uses, the more tired she gets. She only looked tired because Shaun had been critically injured, and healing uses the injured person's energy too, requiring her to be careful with major wounds. Charles ignored her explanation and twisted her words, claiming she just didn't want to heal them. Rina was devastated, crying out that it wasn't true and reminding Charles they had been together since they were kids. But Charles coldly dismissed her, telling her to stop the family act, and stating she was just from the same orphanage as him. This crushed Rina, who wondered if she was the only one who considered them family. Back in the present, Rina sat on her bed, clutching the sheets and realizing something strange was definitely going on. She remembered the official words of her banishment spoken in the name of the hero Charles. Just then, Charles entered her room with a new girl who had short black hair and red eyes. This new girl introduced herself as Kane and politely said she would be taking over Rina's job. Charles confirmed Kane was an extremely good healer who would join the party in Rina's place. Defeated, Rina accepted the situation and decided she wouldn't concern herself with Charles anymore. She felt she no longer belonged with them and had been an idiot for clinging to them. Charles seemed pleased she understood. Adele and Shaun then appeared briefly. Adele mockingly wished her good luck and said they'd never meet again, while Shaun punched her fist, glad to get that off her chest. Rina was left alone in the room. A memory surfaced of a younger Charles hugging her and saying he was really glad she was there. Standing alone in her room, Rina trembled but vowed she would not cry over this. Rina decided to leave the city once she fully recovered and went to the Angus Guild. There, she was greeted by the receptionist, Rosalie, who was happy to see Rina recovered. Rina smiled and waved, thanking Rosalie for worrying about her. Rosalie mentioned that Charles had already finished the procedures to register this strange girl, Kane, as the new party member a few days ago. She then surprised Rina by asking if she and Charles had been engaged, saying she thought they looked right together. Rina quickly denied it, clarifying they were just childhood friends. Rina changed the subject, asking to check her current balance on the guild's tablet. These tablets are special tools made from magic or is used for communication and handling information. Looking at her funds, Rina realized she'd have to live on this for a while. She told Rosalie she was thinking of leaving town, as it would be awkward living in the same town as Charles, and asked for the cheapest tools for solo traveling. Just then, the party's mage, Felicia, appeared. Rina was surprised to see her and asked where the others were. Felicia announced that she had also left the party. Rina, shocked, asked Rosalie if they could use the dining room in the back. Felicia brought 2 large mugs of ale, and they sat down to talk, even though it was still noon. Rina asked Felicia why she left the party, and Felicia countered by asking if Rina remembered why she had accompanied the party in the first place. Felicia reminded Rina they first met 4 years ago. She explained she had been ordered by the Crown Prince to join them because he felt uneasy sending the young and inexperienced Saint Rina and hero Charles to travel alone, despite their talent. Felicia explained that she had to remain neutral during the banishment, but now she was returning to the royal capital. She planned to report Charles's actions to the Crown Prince and would also ask him where Rina's affiliation now lies. Felicia promised to get Rina official authorization to do as she pleased and told her to just relax for the month she'd be gone. Rina was touched by Felicia's kindness. Rina admitted that during their adventures, she always saw Felicia as a solitary mage, but Felicia said that was just part of the job and she hadn't known how to fit in. When Rina asked her age, Felicia, who looked very young, claimed to be 48 or maybe 49 this year. Rina was stunned and asked for her secret to youth, but Felicia just smiled and said it was a secret. They finished their drinks, and Rina remarked that if she had known it would be this fun, she would have talked to Felicia sooner. Felicia then departed on her journey, and Rina wished her safe travels, deciding to stay in town until Felicia returned. Rina walked through town, worrying that she'd be broke if she just fooled around for a month. She considered renting a cheaper room than the inn and decided to discuss it with Rosalie at the guild. When she entered the guild hall, she was shocked to find the dining room completely destroyed. Rosalie was in a panic, explaining that some adventurers had started a fight earlier and she was in a pinch because the dining hall would fill up soon. Rina smiled confidently and told Rosalie not to worry and to leave it to her. Rina announced this was her thanks to the guild for always taking care of her. She noted the fight had happened several hours ago and cast her special magic, Restoration. The magic flowed through the room, and she told Rosalie to hang on as it would go back to normal soon. In an instant, the room was perfectly repaired. Rosalie was amazed, exclaiming that Rina had healed the broken chairs and desks. Rina explained it was restoration magic, a difficult skill that restores broken items by reversing time. She revealed this rare ability is why she is called a saint. After Rosalie thanked her profusely, Rina remembered her original question and asked about finding a cheap room for rent. Rosalie had an idea and suggested Rina rent one of the affordable guild-affiliated rooms upstairs. She then offered Rina a job at the guild, noting that meals are provided for free for employees. A man named Jacob, who thanked Rina for her help earlier, confirmed there were rooms on the 4th floor. Rina, intrigued by the idea of living and working at the guild, asked Jacob to show her the room first. Jacob led her to the room, and Rina was immediately impressed, exclaiming, "Wow," at how spacious it was. She noticed a veranda and stepped outside to look. The view was beautiful, and she was excited to see dragons flying in the distance. Jacob noted they were flying near the Lord's estate, guessing he must have guessed over. Jacob then asked Rina what she would do. Rina looked out at the city, thinking that even though she was suddenly banished and at a loss, this new path seemed really exciting. Instead of only going on adventures, she would live a laid-back life alone in town. She made her decision and, turning to Jacob with a bright smile, she asked to please let her work there. As Rina felt a new sense of excitement, far away, 2 figures were seen approaching Angus City. One of them clenched his fist, vowing to keep his promise to Rina. Rina begins to dream, recalling a nostalgic time from her past. The flashback shows her arriving at an orphanage at age 5 after her parents died in an epidemic. She was always crying, sad, and miserable, until 2 other children, Charles and Henry, reached out to her. The 3 of them are shown happily together, with Henry holding Rina's hand while Charles has his arm around Henry. They quickly became as close as real siblings. The flashback continues, showing that Rina, having been raised like a princess, initially gave the boys a hard time. She is seen angrily throwing a bowl of food, complaining it tastes yucky, and that the bread is too hard. It was during this tantrum that she experienced a strange dream and suddenly regained memories of a past life. She realized she had been reincarnated from a country called Japan, where she had been a young girl who died too soon. After this realization, a bandaged Rina is seen in bed as Henry peeks in, asking if she is okay. He apologizes for hurting her earlier, but Rina smiles, assuring him it no longer hurts. Henry then boldly declares that he will take responsibility and make her his wife. Rina is visibly shocked by his talk of marriage but smiles, thinking it might just be his way of cheering her up. Rina reflects that she believed the 3 of them would always be together, dreaming of their futures, Charles as a knight, Rina as a sweets shop owner, and Henry as a doctor. This dream ended when they turned 13, as a messenger from Henry's father, a serious man with glasses, arrived to take Henry away. As he left, Henry promised Rena he would come back for her and assured Charles they would meet again, with Rena adding they would be friends forever. The dream ends, and Rena wakes up in the present day, stretching in her new guild room. She ties her hair back and prepares for her first day of work at the guild. At the front desk, Rena helps register a new adventurer, thinking how this is her first real job since she became an adventurer right after leaving the orphanage. She finds the work comes naturally, likely due to her past life as a working adult. The guild manager, Jacob, compliments her skill and good manners, then tells her a customer is waiting on the second floor specifically to see her. Jacob leads Rena upstairs, mentioning the customer appears to be one of the Dragon Knights. As the door opens, Rena is stunned to see her childhood friend Henry, who excitedly greets her. He is overjoyed to see her in person after 5 long years. Rena, equally shocked, asks why he is there. Henry steps closer, his heart pounding, and says he came just to see her. Their reunion is interrupted by Jacob and Rosalie peeking from the doorway. Rosalie thinks Henry is handsome, while Jacob scolds her for not working. The man with glasses from the flashback, Julian, also interrupts, calling Henry sir, and reminding him to save the pleasantries for later, as they are on a job. Rena recognizes Julian as the man who took Henry away. Henry becomes serious and asks Rena's manager, Jacob, to join them for a discussion. In a meeting room, Henry explains that the royal palace and the national church found Saint Rena's banishment by hero Charles to be suspicious, so he was sent to investigate. He reveals that when the palace received Felicia's emergency message about Rena's injury, they sent their best healer via teleportation magic. He asks Rena if she met this healer, and Rena confirms she did not. Henry grimly reports that they lost contact with both the healer and their church member escort. Jacob then mentions rumors of a healer from another world appearing in town. Jacob confirms that a girl named Kane came to the guild seeking work and even had official proof from the royal palace that she was a guest from another world. He shows them a portrait of her. Rena, hearing the name, suspects Kane might be Japanese. Jacob adds that the church member was not with her. Rena then points out a critical detail. The eye color in the portrait is wrong. The Kane that Charles brought as her replacement has red eyes, which is different from the black eyes in the portrait. Julian adds that the only message they received from Charles was about Rena's exile and that his party was moving to a different dungeon, abandoning the one in Angus. Rena is shocked that the monster problem was left unresolved, while Henry is furious at Charles for banishing and neglecting Rena after her injury. Julian confirms the Dragon Knights will arrive in a few days to investigate the dungeon. Rena then asks Henry if he is part of the Dragon Knights, but he says he is not an official member and just came by chance. Rena notices his old lying tick but is still deeply happy he came. Later, Rena is out shopping when Henry finds her, offering to help carry her heavy box. They go to her new, empty room, where Henry sets the box down. Rena opens it, revealing not tableware, but natural stone fragments. She explains her new plan to earn money. She will infuse the stones with healing magic and sell them as pendants for small wounds. Henry is amazed by her ability. When Rena offers to make him one, Henry declines, saying he already has a pendant. He pulls out a glass bead pendant, identical to the one Rena is wearing. She is stunned he still has it, and Henry confirms he has always treasured it. They both remember making the matching pendants as children with Charles. Rena wonders aloud if Charles still has his, and Henry confidently replies that he is sure he does. Henry then briefly explains his past, revealing he was welcomed by his father's family, even as an illegitimate child, and eventually became a count. Rena is impressed, but Henry brushes it off, saying she and Charles are more impressive. He grows serious, confessing he never stopped thinking about her and was beside himself with worry when he heard she was attacked. He reminds Rena of his childhood promise, declaring that he will protect her from now on and asks her to come live in his territory. Rena, taken aback by the serious mood, thanks him but insists she is fine and is looking forward to her new life in Angus. Their conversation is interrupted again by Julian knocking. He sternly reminds Sir Henry that they are on a job and must leave for a dinner with the local lord. Henry reluctantly agrees and says goodbye to Rena. As they leave, Julian pauses and turns back to Rena. He tells her that because she is a strong and wise person, he must inform her of something. Sir Henry has a fiancée. Rena is left stunned as Julian leaves. She realizes Julian was warning her about her relationship with Henry. This infuriates her, and she slams her hands on her balcony railing, startling a cat. She yells in frustration, angry that people are making assumptions when she is just trying to enjoy her new life, and she resolves to savor her slow life even more. Rina appears with a slightly troubled expression and a small bead of sweat, thinking against a patterned background. She was recently scolded by Julian for reasons she doesn't understand and now wonders how she should treat her precious childhood friend Henry. As she's thinking, Rina smiles gently, and Henry appears, smiling back at her. He asks if she wants to walk through town together since he knows she gets off work soon. Rina, looking surprised, asks how he knew, and Henry explains that Rosalie told him her work schedule. Rina has to decline, telling him that she still has more work to do today. Henry asks if she is doing overtime, but Rina clarifies that this is for another job, not her normal schedule, as she received a specific job request as a healer. Rina and Henry walk together outside as she explains the new job. She is going to restore library books because the library was struck by lightning during heavy rains a few weeks ago. This lightning strike opened a hole in the roof. Rina looks at the water-damaged books, agreeing they are even more tattered than she had imagined. The man explains that this section mainly stores history books and that they received the most damage. He expresses his concern, saying it will take a considerable amount of time to restore them, making it impossible to finish in one day. As they are talking, a new person with light hair and pointed ears approaches, saying hello. This person asks if they are looking for something, explaining that they came to find a book only to discover this unfortunate situation. Rina clarifies that they are here on a guild request to help restore the damaged books. The newcomer, overhearing this, looks intrigued and observes Rina's unique appearance of silver hair and red eyes. They ask if Rina is the one who will be restoring the books and express great surprise, exclaiming that restoration magic is incredibly rare, even among their own colleagues. Rina confirms that she can use a little bit of restoration magic and hopes it will be helpful. The smiling newcomer then introduces himself as Salim, a scholar, and explains that he was dispatched by the Tarkis Countries Guild. Rina, in turn, introduces herself as Rina Glan, a healer, and Henry introduces himself as Henry de Verdun, adding that he is Rina's assistant. Salim greets them both warmly. Rina then asks Salim what kind of book he came here to find. Salim places a hand on his chest and explains that he is here for a book about demons, like himself. Rina and Henry are shown in close-up, reacting with surprise to the word demons. A small map and silhouettes are shown as the history of the continent is explained. There are 3 races that exist, but 90% of the population is human. The other 2 races, elves and demons, live considerably longer than humans. Rina thinks about this, realizing it's rare to see demons in Hirtia Kingdom because a king had banished both elves and demons several generations ago. Salim confirms Rina's thoughts, explaining that all the banished demons and elves migrated to Tarkis. Henry adds that while the reason for the banishment is unknown, there has been a history of elves and demons not being allowed in the country for the 50 years that followed. Salim continues, sharing that his ancestors actually used to live in Angus. He was hoping to research his ancestors' lives and culture after learning that the Angus library contained old history books. He came to borrow a book related to demons, but unfortunately discovered that a lightning bolt had damaged the books. Rina looks at Salim with newfound determination, declaring that this is exactly why she needs to restore the books as soon as possible, so that Salim can look for the book about his ancestors. She turns to Henry and asks if he'll help out too, and Henry firmly agrees, saying, "Of course." Salim thanks them both. Rina then takes charge, instructing Henry to take the damaged books down from the shelves and line them up on the desk. Henry agrees to handle it, but as he looks at the severely damaged books, he asks Rina if she really thinks she can fix them. Rina decides to test her magic on one book first to see how it goes. She estimates that restoring all the books to how they were before the lightning strike will probably take about a month. She holds her hand over one of the ruined books and activates her skill, chanting restoration as magical text swirls around the book. The magic is a huge success, and the book is left perfectly restored, much to everyone's relief. Rina cheers, and Salim looks amazed, exclaiming that Rina is incredible for being able to do such a thing. Rina picks up the newly restored book and reads its title, Angus Pitiful Monster. She observes that it appears to be a demon picture book. Salim looks at the book with interest, mentioning that dangerous monsters have recently appeared in Angus dungeons. Henry asks if something has been happening regarding monsters, and Salim confirms that it is a current problem in the local dungeons. Salim speculates that if these monsters have been in Angus this entire time, it's possible they are written about in this very picture book. He then offers to let them have the book, saying he will tell them about it once he reads it. Rina asks if he is sure, and Salim agrees, asking that in exchange, they please restore the other books. Rina smiles and gratefully accepts, thanking Salim. Henry smiles, remarking that it looks like they might get some useful information on Angus monsters. He says he will report this information to the Dragon Knights as well. Rena agrees, saying it would be great if they learned something. Selim then offers to help gather information too, an offer that Rena and Henry eagerly accept. Rena thinks to herself that she had intended to prioritize a slow life but has somehow ended up getting involved in the dungeon issue. 3 days later, the bookshelves are all restored to normal. Selim looks at the pristine shelves, amazed, and happily exclaims that he can now look for his book. He turns to Rena and Henry and thanks them. Selim expresses his gratitude to Rena for restoring all the books so quickly, but Rena humbly replies that it was all because she originally received the job from the guild. Selim then remembers his side of the bargain. He hands the picture book to Rena and Henry, saying it may be useful to them. He explains that while the book is a story about a child and a monster, it also contains the origin of Angus dungeons. He also notes that he attached a translation for them. Rena thanks him warmly. Henry also thanks Selim for helping out and casually asks if his boss was angry about him coming to the library every day. Selim simply replies that they were fine with it. Later, Henry asks Rena if she wants to try reading a bit of the picture book. Rena agrees, saying she is interested in the content. As she opens the book, she privately wonders if Julian knew that Henry had been with her, hoping to avoid trouble. She decides it's fine, since she told everyone she was helping the library, something not even Julian could complain about. Rena begins to read the story aloud, starting with, "Long ago, there was a large, black monster." The book shows the monster lived all alone in a cave. A lonely child lived nearby, and before long, the two of them became friends. Rena continues reading the increasingly dark story. The child would give the monster some of their own blood when it got hungry. 3 years later, the monster grew too big and the child became too arrogant, and the two could no longer be together. 5 years after that, the monster sharpened its fangs, hoping to reunite with the child. The story says the monster was torn into 4 parts and now awaits for children to visit it in the darkness. It ends with a rhyme about a lonely monster waiting forever for children at the end of a 6-forked road, at the 7 Dragons. Rena notices Henry looks disturbed and asks him what's wrong. He replies that the content is just kind of disturbing. A close-up shows Henry thinking intently about the words, 7 Dragons. Rena smiles slightly, agreeing that it's definitely a bit scary, but points out that the important fact is that this picture book is related to the origin of the dungeons. She wonders aloud if the monster currently in Angus Dungeon could be the same one from the picture book, but then dismisses the idea, saying the book was made so long ago that the monster couldn't possibly still be alive. Henry agrees, saying they don't even know if it's a true story. Henry then smiles and teases Rena, asking if the picture book's monster scared her. Rena immediately blushes and denies it, protesting that she is a former adventurer. She insists she isn't scared and that she has faced way more monsters than Henry has, though she does admit that healers usually stay in the back as support and don't fight. Henry just says, "Oh," and replies fondly that she has always been strong, even since long ago. Suddenly, Henry tells Rena to look up at the sky. Rena looks up and sees what look like moving stars. Henry explains that it is the dragon army and that the Dragon Knights have finally arrived in Angus. Henry smiles, stating that with their arrival, the dungeon investigation will finally begin. Rena, however, clutches the picture book and looks off into the distance toward the dungeon entrance. She says, "It's just," wondering to herself what this vague feeling of apprehension is. Rena stands outside, thinking about the recent arrival of the Dragon Knights in Angus. She recalls that Henry mentioned he was going to report to them, and she now wonders if he will also be participating in the dungeon investigation. While at the guild, she looks for someone named Lim. Suddenly, a tall woman with dark hair named Felicia appears, announcing she is back. Rena is delighted to see her. Felicia questions why Rena is at the guild, and Rena explains that she is working there now. Rena says she is almost finished with work and asks Felicia to wait at the food hall, but Felicia is already at a counter ordering an ale, seemingly ready to drink. Later, Rena brings Felicia to her room, which is shown to be in a nearby building. Felicia looks around the room and comments on how wonderful it is. Her attention is suddenly caught by a black cat and a gray cat, and the black cat flinches as Felicia asks if Rena owns cats. Rena, seeing the 2 cats sitting comfortably on her couch, says they got inside again. She explains to Felicia that the cats are not hers, they just appear to live at the guild. Rena walks over to the cats, apologizing as she asks them to please go out onto the veranda since she has a visitor. As she reaches out to stroke the black cat, it hisses and recoils. Rena is shocked because she thinks she hears the cat speak, telling her not to touch it so casually. Rena pauses, wondering if she just heard a voice or if she merely imagined it, as the cat then lets out a normal meow. Before Rena can dwell on it, Felicia calls her name, stating that there is something important she needs to tell her first. Felicia's demeanor becomes serious as she holds up her hand and formally addresses Rena Glan. She announces that she is delivering a direct order from the Crown Prince. Rena listens intently as Felicia explains the order. Rena is relieved of her previous duty to investigate the Angus dungeon, but she is now commanded to collaborate with the Dragon Knight's investigation instead. Rena, showing a bead of sweat, confirms she understands the order, though she seems surprised to be dismissed from her duty so suddenly. Felicia smiles in relief and says there is one more part to the order. After the investigation concludes, Saint Rena is also required to report to the royal palace, a command that clearly makes Rena uncomfortable. Felicia observes that Rena seems to find this bothersome and confirms the Crown Prince wants to meet her. Leaning in, Felicia makes it clear that it is her own job to ensure this meeting happens, so Rena has no choice but to go to the palace. A nervous Rena simply agrees, saying she will go. Rena admits she is nervous about meeting someone as important as the Crown Prince. Felicia then shifts the topic, saying there is a separate matter she wishes to discuss, and she asks Rena if she remembers a girl named Kane. Rena immediately confirms she remembers Kane, adding that she also remembered something strange about her. Felicia elaborates on this odd story, explaining that Kane was a healer sent from the National Church, but the church member who was supposed to be accompanying her had vanished. Kane apparently hid this fact and proceeded to join Charles's party on her own. As they sit and talk, Felicia mentions she has been thinking about this situation for a while. Rena, seated across from her, reflects on her own experience, noting that while she only spent a short time with Kane before she left the party, odd things kept happening even in that brief period. Rena recalls how they were suddenly attacked by a monster that rarely appears and, looking back, she realizes Charles's mood changed abruptly right after they met Kane. She openly wonders if Kane is somehow connected to this change in Charles. Rena voices her concerns, questioning if it is truly safe for Charles to be associating with someone as mysterious as Kane, and even wonders if this mystery is connected to the real reason she was banished from the party. Felicia cautions that this is only speculation, but she does reveal that she heard they are currently investigating Charles's movements. This news brings Rena some relief, as it means they are also looking into the issues surrounding Kane. Changing the subject, Felicia asks Rena if she is hungry and suggests going to the food hall, but then she offers to make dinner for Rena right there in the room. Rena thinks that would be great, and Felicia declares she will go all out. A short while later, Felicia dramatically presents a large bowl of food, announcing that dinner is served. She explains that she made noodles by mixing wheat and horo flour. Rena thinks it looks delicious, while Felicia admits it's her first time seeing this kind of cuisine and asks what it is. Rena proudly calls it her own original dish, a version of zaru soba made to resemble regular soba. Just as Rena is saying they should eat, there are knocks at the door. Rena calls out and opens it to find Henry, who greets her. He immediately notices Felicia and asks if Rena has a guest. Felicia and Henry recognize each other. Felicia greets Count Verdun, noting it's been a long time, and Henry expresses his surprise at seeing the mage Felicia in Rena's room. Rena asks Felicia if she knows Henry, leading Felicia to look surprised at Rena. Rena then clarifies to Felicia that she hadn't told her before, but Henry is her childhood friend. When asked how they know one another, Henry clarifies that he knows Felicia a bit from his time at the royal palace. Felicia explains her presence, stating that she came after hearing Rena was injured and that her visit also serves as a way to investigate the movements of Charles's party, though she dryly comments that the investigation part sounds like an afterthought. Henry's attention, however, is captured by Rena's food, and he exclaims that it looks delicious. Rena asks if he would like some, and he enthusiastically says yes. After Rena serves him a bowl, Henry tries it and is amazed, declaring it delicious and asking what it is. Felicia smiles in agreement, adding that it's great. As Henry prepares some tea, Felicia observes him and remarks to Rena that it is quite unusual for a count to be brewing tea. Henry overhears and says this is a special occasion, telling them not to tell anyone. Felicia continues to tease, whispering to Rena that she heard from the royal palace maids about Henry's nickname. Rena is visibly shocked to learn that Henry is called the Ice Prince. Felicia finds it amusing that this Ice Prince is so cheerfully waiting on Rena. Henry, annoyed, tells Felicia to stop telling Rena strange things. Felicia's tone then turns serious as she addresses Henry, bringing up the order for Rina to collaborate with the Dragon Knights and asking him if that won't be dangerous. Henry replies grimly that it is a direct order from the Crown Prince, as Rina looks on. Felicia then asks Rina if her injuries from the Angus dungeon have healed. Rina brightly confirms she is completely healed, adding that thanks to her healing magic, it looks like she won't have any scars. She reflects that the only scar she has is from a head injury she got as a child, an injury that occurred before she awakened her healing powers. Henry looks at her intently and asks if the reason she healed so perfectly was so that she wouldn't forget her promise to him. The sudden question causes Rina to spit out her tea in surprise, while Felicia looks on, intrigued by the mention of a promise. Rina, completely flustered, asks Henry what promise he could possibly be talking about. She quickly changes the subject, asking him if it's true that he has a fiancée. A brief flashback shows a young Henry blushing as he tells a young Rina that he will take responsibility and make her his wife. Rina explains that Julian was the one who told her Henry had a fiancée. Henry is stunned by this accusation and vehemently denies it, swearing he does not have one. His expression darkens as he mutters that Julian must have been the one to say that. Henry's heart visibly pounds as he looks at Rina with intense emotion. He asks her if she truly believed he was so heartless that he would forget his promise to her and get engaged. He confesses that their promise is what has kept him going for the last 5 years. Rina is stunned into silence. Felicia, observing this dramatic scene, simply sighs and tries to get their attention. Felicia sighs again, feeling a bit left out. Addressing Felicia's earlier concern, Henry clarifies that Rina's collaboration is not dangerous because she is not being ordered to go inside the dungeon itself. Felicia seems to accept this explanation. Henry then suggests that since they have finished eating, they should all go for a walk. Felicia proposes that she should probably go and greet the Dragon Knights, and Rina offers to guide her, pointing out that she is working with them now. Rina questions if it is all right to visit the Knights so late at night, but Henry assures her it's fine, explaining they are often away from their lodging during the day. He also mentions that Julian said he would be coming too. Henry then smiles and tells Rina there is someone special he wants her to meet. They arrive at an area where a large, white dragon is resting. Henry affectionately calls out to his buddy, asking him if he's been getting along with everybody. Rina looks at the magnificent creature and asks Henry if it is his dragon. Henry proudly confirms this is Lute, commenting on how cute he is and telling Rina she can pet him. As Rina agrees, Felicia excuses herself to go greet the knights first. Rina reaches out to Lute, introducing herself as Henry's childhood friend. Just as she touches him, Lute rears back and lets out a pained screech. At the same moment, a young knight runs up, recognizing Rina and mentioning that Henry had said he was coming to meet her. Rina stares in utter shock, realizing she could perfectly understand the dragon's cry. Lute was crying out for her, saying his claw hurt. Henry, alarmed by the noise, rushes to his dragon, asking Lute what is wrong and why he is crying like that. Rina, momentarily wondering if she imagined the voice, tells Henry that it seems his foot is bothering him. Henry immediately inspects Lute's foot and discovers that one of his claws is broken. As Lute screeches again, Henry apologizes for not noticing it sooner. Rina reassures him, saying she can heal something like this immediately. Rina places her hand on Lute's leg and casts her healing magic. The effect is instant. Lute gives a happy screech and affectionately nuzzles Rina, exclaiming that it's amazing, the pain is gone, and thanks her. Henry also thanks Rina, relieved. Rina, meanwhile, is having a stunning realization. She wasn't imagining it. She can understand Lute, which must mean she didn't mishear the cat's voice back in her room either. As Rina smiles, she is suddenly surrounded by several other dragons, all clamoring for her attention. She understands all of them as they complain about their own ailments. One has an unbearable toothache, another's wing joint hurts, one has a sore eye, one bumped its head, and another just feels tired. Henry is completely baffled by this and asks Rina what is happening. Rina, totally flustered, quickly lies and tells him she just thought she would give the other dragons a checkup. She mentally berates herself for lying but is left wondering why she is the only one who can understand them, noting that the dragons don't seem to talk to Henry at all. The other dragons let out cries of relief, and the young knight who ran up earlier looks on in astonishment. He recognizes Rina, exclaiming that she must be the famous Saint Rina. He calls over to Henry, enthusiastically reporting that Rina has restored the dragons to good health. Following him, another man with neat brown hair steps forward and introduces himself as Danton, the vice-captain of the Dragon Knights. He expresses his gratitude to Rina for not only coming to visit but also for giving all the dragons a checkup. Rena smiles and politely introduces herself as Rena Glan. Danton reciprocates the greeting and adds that he received a message from the Crown Prince, stating he is very relieved that Saint Rena will be assisting them. Rena quickly tries to correct him, insisting there is no need to call her a saint. Danton suggests they continue the discussion back at the lodging, noting that Felicia is waiting for them there. As they prepare to leave, Henry looks at Rena with concern, asking if she is tired after using so much healing magic on all the dragons. Rena reports that she feels fine and isn't tired at all, which she finds odd since she knows she used more magic than usual. She then turns back to Danton, promising to provide any useful information she has about the dungeons, and he comments on how reliable she is. Rena waves goodbye to Lute, but as she turns to go, Henry suddenly calls her name, asking her to wait. Rena alone hears Lute's voice in her mind, issuing a desperate warning. The dragon tells her not to go to the dungeon because something strange and scary lives there. Lute explains that a remaining trace of that scary thing is now inside Rena. This leaves Rena stunned and confused, wondering what this remaining trace inside her could possibly be. The group is gathered at the Dragon Knight's lodging, where Rena is pointing to a hand-drawn map of the dungeon. She explains that according to the map, there are relatively few monsters up to the 4th floor, and there are even halls where adventurers can take a break. She then points out that her party was attacked after they entered the 6th floor. Danton listens and then states that the final goal of this investigation is to find and exterminate the specific monster that hurt Rena. Danton stands with his hand on his chest, explaining their plan. He says that starting tomorrow, they will begin the investigation in stages, proceeding with caution as they study the dungeon's details. He also assures Rena that they will report their findings to her, and Henry thanks him. Danton then asks Rena what kind of monster it was. Rena looks down, visibly troubled, and admits she didn't get a good look at it. She can only recall that it looked like a black shadow and had red eyes. Danton considers this, suggesting it might be a ghost-type monster. Henry adds that since even the hero party couldn't defeat it, it must be a very troublesome opponent, as Rena thinks about their plan to kill it. Back in the lodging, Danton looks at the group and asks if he can assume that both Felicia and Sir Henry will be accompanying the knights on the investigation. Later, Henry and Rena stand outside, looking towards the dungeon entrance. Henry confirms that joining the investigation is his plan. He then reveals a crucial piece of information. According to the National Church's report, Cannae and her missing companion used teleportation magic to travel directly into Angus Dungeon. Rena is visibly surprised by this news. Henry looks grimly at the dungeon, wondering what might have happened to them there and suggesting they might find answers once they go inside. Julian suddenly appears, firmly stating that he would never allow Sir Henry to do anything dangerous. He declares that he will, of course, be accompanying them, so no one needs to worry. Felicia immediately tells Julian that he had better do his job properly, and Julian tells her she doesn't need to state the obvious. Rena looks surprised by their familiar bickering and asks Felicia if she also knows Julian. Felicia clarifies that they aren't just acquaintances. Julian is actually her nephew. Rena is stunned to learn that the two are related. Humorous text boxes appear, describing Felicia as a wondrous 48-year-old beauty, and Julian as the man who doesn't age. Felicia gently tells Rena to leave the investigation to them for now. Henry also tries to reassure her, saying that since everyone is going, she should just relax and wait for their return. Rena, however, says she wants to go too, looking very worried. She explains that she needs to confirm something strange that Lute the dragon told her, about something unusual living in the dungeon. Despite her worries, she eventually relents, telling them she understands and asking them to please not overdo it and to return safely. As a side note, Felicia and Julian briefly comment that they don't really look related, before Felicia brings the topic back to Rena. Later, Rena opens the door to her room and finds the two guild cats, one black and one gray, meowing outside. She smiles, greets them, and asks if they are ready for dinner, welcoming them inside. The black cat huffs with anticipation as Rena holds out a bowl of food. However, Rena suddenly pulls the bowl away and pats the black cat on the head, telling them she needs to check something first. The moment Rena touches them, she gasps in shock, realizing she can now understand their speech. The black cat is furious, calling her a lowlife and demanding she hand over his tribute food immediately. The gray cat chimes in, calling her a fool and telling her to hand over the food. Rena comments that they aren't being very nice, which only angers the black cat more, who proudly shouts that he is not just a cat, but Mildred III. The gray cat then introduces himself as Mike. Rena, sweating slightly, repeats their names, Mike and me, trying to shorten Mildred's name to Millie. Mildred the third angrily corrects her and demands to know what Rena is, since she can understand them. The cat insists that humans should not be able to understand them, as the only races with that ability are elves and demons. Rena, while petting them, calmly states that she is just a human. This new information makes Rena wonder if it's possible she has elven or demon blood in her ancestry. Mildred scoffs at this idea, declaring it's not possible because humans with elven or demon blood are known to be tall and slender, which he says a short, like Rena, is not. He then accuses her of being a demon. Rena simply replies that if he's going to be mean, she supposes he won't get any dinner. The cat's demeanor changes instantly. He thumps his tail and grandly announces that she is forgiven. Rena gives them their food, and they begin to eat. While watching them, Rena is left to wonder why she can understand dragons and cats. This mystery prompts Rena to experiment by trying to pet all sorts of animals. She discovers she cannot understand a neighing horse or a clucking chicken. However, she can understand a dog, which happily exclaims how happy it is to be petted, and an angry crow, which struggles in her hands and threatens to peck her if she doesn't let go. She realizes she can only understand some animals. Holding a small chirping bird, she wonders what the difference could be. She feels it would be best to consult someone about this, but she is left standing outside, wondering who she could possibly talk to about her new ability to speak to animals. Rena goes to the guild reception desk, where a different receptionist is working. She starts to ask about hiring someone to carry luggage for a trip. Just then, she hears Salim call out to her. He waves, greeting her cheerfully and saying he still owes her for her help last time. Salim explains that because she restored the books, he was able to check all the demon documents in the library. He has completed a lot of research and was just thinking about returning home soon. Rena's eyes widen at the mention of demon documents, and she quickly tells Salim there is something important she needs to ask him. He smiles and agrees to listen. In a more private setting, Rena explains her situation to Salim. She tells him she'd like to keep it a secret, but it appears she has gained the ability to understand animals when she touches them. Salim is surprised and clarifies, "You can understand animal language now." He listens intently, noting that he feels like he's heard this story before. He confirms with Rena that this is a new power she acquired, not one she was born with. Salim then offers a theory. He thinks that when Rena was attacked in the dungeon, she might have been somehow affected by the demon's magic. This makes Rena think of the demon's power, and she wonders if this new ability is the lingering presence the dragon lute had warned her about. Salim elaborates on his theory, explaining that the difference between the animals Rena can and cannot understand is magic. He says that those with demon lineage can talk to animals that possess magic, but they are unable to communicate with animals that do not. Rena then asks why her understanding of the dog's speech was so shoddy. Salim has an answer for this too, explaining that it's likely because while dogs have wolf lineage, their innate magic is very weak. Rena recalls the animals she could understand: dragons, cats, and crows. Salim continues, stating that while both elves and demons have the power to talk to animals, certain characteristics are unique to demons, such as powerful magic and red eyes. The mention of red eyes makes Rena gasp, thinking of her own eye color. Rena, touching her own face, asks Salim and Lim if a normal human's eyes have ever turned red. Salim looks surprised and clarifies if she is asking about a human's eye color changing. He thoughtfully replies that he is sure he saw an example of that exact thing in the library's documents. He tells Rena that he still has one day left before he returns to his country, so he offers to look it up for her. Rena is thrilled by the offer and eagerly accepts, thinking to herself that this information might help her learn even a little bit more about Kane. The story then flashes back to several weeks earlier, showing the entrance to the Angus dungeon. Rena's voice narrates that this dungeon is where everything started for her. It was where she was attacked by the monster, and it was after this incident that Charles began acting strangely. Rena recalls what Henry told her, that Kane and her companion used teleportation magic to go directly inside the dungeon. This makes Rena wonder if something similar happened to Kane while she was in there. The flashback continues, but now it follows Charles and Kane as they stand inside the dungeon. Charles looks around and comments that it feels nostalgic being back there, even though they have only been away from Angus for 2 or 3 days. He then says that this place feels wrong to him and that he feels he doesn't belong in this world. He turns to Kane and asks if she doesn't think so too. Kane, however, replies that she doesn't find this place nostalgic at all. This triggers Kane's own flashback, showing the moment she first arrived in this world. She remembers standing before 3 robed figures. The central priest welcomed her to Tia Kingdom, but called her an uninvited and unlucky traveler. Kane thinks about her old life, how she was attending university, diligently job hunting, and was generally happy, until that fateful day. The priests informed her that unfortunately, there was no way for her to return to her original world, and she needed to prepare herself to live here from now on. The national church promised to protect her and assigned her an attendant to help her learn about this new world. Kane recalls this period with despair, as her assigned attendant was the absolute worst. He was a sneering nobleman who constantly looked down on her, calling her otherworld girl, complaining about his duties, and reminding her that he was a noble and she should know her place. Kane remembers that in this foreign world where everything from the culture to the sense of values was different, all she could do to survive was simply obey her cruel attendant. Her despair only lifted when she finally gained the will to live on the day she met a kind, elderly priest who treated her like family. This priest smiled at her and told her she had the talent to be a healer, which was a very important job in this world. He offered to teach her all about a healer's job and their craft, and Kane, full of hope, thanked him profusely. Thanks to the kind priest who detected her talent and patiently instructed her, Kane was able to establish a new life for herself in this world as a healer. She was even recognized for her abilities and was frequently asked to visit the royal palace. However, her attendant remained, as she puts it, garbage. He would approach her and tell her to be grateful, taking credit for her success and saying it was all thanks to him that she became someone decent. Kane understood that no matter how awful he was, in this world, the royalty and nobility held all the power. There was no way for someone from another world, like her, to defy a noble. So, she would simply bow her head and say, "Of course, I'm grateful to you." He would then smile and tell her that in that case, she should do as he says. This culminated in him asking her to become his wife, promising that if she devoted herself to him, he would make sure she lived happily ever after. Kane was repulsed. She called him disgusting, slapped him across the face, and shouted that his proposal was ridiculous and there was no way she would ever do that. The attendant flew into a rage, grabbing her and shouting, "What did you say?" He couldn't believe she was rejecting his offer, reminding her that she was just a worthless person from another world. Kane recalls that she had no other choice but to endure his abuse. Then, one day, she was notified about a girl called a saint who had gotten injured. This saint had been attacked by a monster while she was shielding a young hero, and Kane was the one chosen to heal her. She was told that because it was an emergency, they would be using special transportation magic to get to their destination. This also meant that she would require a companion for the journey. The transportation magic was meant to take them to their faraway destination in an instant. Kane was horrified to discover that her companion for this mission was the worst possible person, her noble attendant. They were supposed to be transported to Angus City, but when the spell activated, they instead found themselves deep inside Angus Dungeon. Kane looked around in terror, demanding to know where in the world they were and what was the meaning of this. Her attendant simply smirked, telling her he was giving her, the one who rejected his offer, a chance to reconsider. Kane, though clearly frightened, stood her ground, asking what he was saying at a time like this and stating that her answer would not change. Her defiance made him slap her again, and he screamed at her not to get cocky, reminding her that he was the one who had been looking after her. He told her that the only thing she could accomplish was giving birth to a male noble. As Kane stumbled backward from the blow, black liquid, like monster's blood, suddenly splashed onto the wall behind her. She glared at him and angrily asked what his problem was, suggesting that if he was so upset, he should go take down a monster. The attendant, now holding a drawn sword, smiled cruelly and said that if she insisted, he would show her him slaying a monster. He then added, "After all, isn't a girl from another world the same as a monster?" The attendant then gave her an ultimatum. If she got down on her knees and apologized, then and only then would he forgive her. This was the final straw for Kane. She broke down, crying and wondering why this was happening and what she had ever done to deserve this. She screamed that she couldn't take this world anymore and that there was nothing but despair for her if she stayed, wishing she could just go back to her original world. In her moment of absolute despair, a shadowy voice spoke to her, calling her a poor thing and a poor girl, betrayed by fate. The voice told her to come here, offering to save her. Kane, with tears streaming down her face, looked toward the voice and asked if it would actually save her. She pleaded, asking if it would save her from this nightmare and take her back home. The voice replied, "Of course, but only as long as she entered into a contract with it." Overcome with desperation, Kane cried out, "Save me," and begged it to please go ahead, agreeing to the contract. The shadowy entity told her that was right and that this was all just a nightmare. It told her that all she needed to do now was obey it and drift off into a dream. As Kane cried out, a dark, hissing mist began to envelop her completely. A few days have passed since Henry and his group began their investigation of the dungeon. Back at the guild, Rena is at her desk surrounded by scattered papers, feeling anxious as there haven't been any updates from the team. Her companion, the black cat Mildred, is also on the desk, telling her to calm down. Just then, Salim arrives, announcing that he has been looking into her request and has found some interesting information. Rena is eager to hear and prepares to ask for leave from her post, but before they can talk, Henry appears looking very grim. Rena is startled to see him back so soon and asks if he's back from the dungeon and if everyone is alright. Henry bypasses her questions, stating seriously that there is something he needs to confirm with her immediately. Salim, observing the tension, notes that it sounds like something must have happened inside the dungeon. Henry directs Rena to the second floor, explaining that the vice captain of the Dragon Knights, Danton, is waiting for her. As they head out, Salim speaks up, revealing that his own research also uncovered information about the Angus monster. He asks if he can attend the meeting, confident that his information will be helpful. Upstairs, Danton shows Rena, Henry, and Salim several items laid out on a table. Rena looks on in horror, instantly recognizing the equipment. Danton confirms her fears, identifying the items as Simon's sword, Adele's blade, and Charles's tablet. He explains that Felicia also confirmed their identities, leaving no doubt. The items were discovered on the 6th floor, an area known for being full of monsters. Rena, clutching her chest with a bad feeling, asks if only the items were found and what happened to their owners. Danton grimly reports that, unfortunately, no one was able to find any trace of the heroes themselves. This news devastates Rena, who immediately blames herself. She laments that if she had just controlled her emotions and gone after Charles and his party back then, they might have been safe. Henry firmly grabs her arm, stopping her and telling her she is wrong. He insists that talking about hypotheticals will not get them anywhere and that they must instead focus on what to do now. Rena composes herself, agreeing that he is right. Felicia adds to the mystery, noting that there is no record of Charles's party ever returning to the guild, which is strange since they were supposed to have come back from another dungeon. Henry declares that it is necessary to search the Angus dungeon one more time. This prompts Salim to share his interesting tale. He reminds the group of the demon picture book, Angus Pitiful Monster, which described a human and a monster becoming friends. Salim explains that this friendship likely signifies a contract between them. He elaborates that according to other documents, this contract was sealed when the child gave the monster their blood, and in return, the human was granted powerful magic, with the proof being that their eyes turned red. Rena listens intently, immediately connecting the dots. The mysterious monster, Kane's eyes turning red, and the possibility that Kane herself made a contract with the creature. She even wonders if her own ability to use magic without getting tired is a result of the monster's power. While Salim cautions that this is all from a picture book, Henry states that he finds it surprisingly believable. Henry then adds his own finding. The 7 dragons mentioned in the book matches the royal coat of arms of Hirtia Kingdom, which is a 7-headed dragon. He also shares a royal legend about a king and a hero sealing a fearsome monster within a summoning circle using the king's own blood. Rena notes that this legend perfectly matches the picture book's story of the monster being split into 4 parts. Felicia concludes that a monster related to the royal family may be in Angus, and Rena insists this is even more reason to search for it immediately. With this new information, Henry suggests the Dragon Knights should guard the dungeon's vicinity. He explains that his team found no monsters during their search, which implies the main threat may have already escaped. Danton, alarmed at the thought of it attacking nearby villages, agrees and also decides to organize a search party for Charles and his companions, who might still be trapped inside. Rena steps forward, firmly insisting that she must be allowed to go with them. She declares that she cannot simply wait in silence while they search for her former companions and that she doesn't want to have any more regrets. She also makes the practical point that it is reckless to attempt a dungeon conquest without a healer. The decision is made, and the search is set to begin the next day. Rena reflects on Kane, a person from another world, wondering why she would make such a contract and what truly happened to her in that dungeon. The following day, the party, consisting of Henry, Rena, Felicia, and Julian, stands at the dungeon entrance. Henry warns everyone to stay sharp, as they don't know what to expect. As they step inside, Mildred the cat, whom Rena calls Millie, appears and offers to lend Rina his power, asking to be taken along. He confidently reports that he cannot sense the monster's presence at all. Rina is delighted, but the rest of the group is stunned. Felicia asks Rina if she just spoke to the cat. Rina nervously explains that ever since the monster attack, she has been able to understand animals. Henry looks alarmed and asks if this ability is even safe, but Rina quickly reassures him that Salim confirmed it is harmless. Henry sighs in relief, and Rina asks if Millie can join them, explaining that the cat can detect the monster's presence. Henry agrees that if he's useful, he doesn't mind. Millie immediately jumps onto Felicia, admiring the slender, beautiful woman, before leaping to Julian, whom he also deems slender but boring. As Rina calls for the cat to come back, the group ventures deeper, with Millie announcing they are approaching the 6th floor. They soon enter a vast, cavernous hall that Rina doesn't recognize. Felicia is shocked, stating that this massive hall was not there during their investigation just yesterday. Julian inspects the walls, telling Henry they appear to be made of an impressive amount of precious magic ore. Rina then spots strange carvings on the wall. As she reaches out and touches the stone, she hears faint, ghostly whispers saying, "I won't forgive you, and I want to leave this place." Julian recognizes the markings and suddenly shouts that it's a summoning circle. The circle on the wall instantly begins to glow brightly. Julian yells for everyone to get back, and Millie shrieks that something is coming. From the glowing circle, shadowy monsters with red eyes begin to emerge. Henry and Julian prepare for battle, but Henry notes that the creatures are not attacking. Julian suggests they strike first, but Henry tells him to wait. The monsters are moaning a sound, Hina. Rina is baffled, and Millie confirms that the monsters are weird and are calling for her. As Rina wonders why they would be calling her name, she has a sudden realization. She runs forward, past her companions, telling them to wait. Ignoring Julian's warning that it's dangerous, she stops directly in front of the moaning monsters and asks, "Is that you, Adele?" "Shaun." Rina confronting the shadowy monsters, calling out the names of her former party members, Adele and Shaun. This causes Felicia and Henry to react in shock. The two creatures, one a large lion-like beast and the other a giant snake, look at Rina and seem to nod, moaning her childhood nickname, Hina. While Henry and Julian watch with concern, Rina steps forward, telling the monsters she is going to touch them and asking them to hold still. As Rina makes contact, she is able to hear their thoughts clearly. The lion beast confirms he is Shaun and desperately begs her to turn them back into themselves. The snake also pleads for Rina to save them. Rina, now certain of their identities, asks what happened to them. Shaun explains that they had returned to this dungeon several weeks ago when they were suddenly attacked by the monster. Rina asks if it was the Angus monster, which Shaun confirms. Julian states that this is bad, explaining that while Rina's recovery magic might be able to reverse the transformation, rewinding time by several weeks on a human is extremely dangerous. He worries that Rina's body would not be able to handle the massive consumption of magic power required for such a feat. Felicia mentions that Rina was able to restore books that were water damaged for weeks, but Rina clarifies that restoring humans uses a vastly different and far greater amount of magic, making it seem almost impossible. Despite the danger, Rina's expression becomes determined, and she states that saving everyone is the reason she came here. She insists that the situation is not completely hopeless. If she doesn't have enough magic power on her own, she can make up for it. She then turns to the dungeon walls, declaring her plan to draw power from the abundant magic ore embedded within them. Julian gasps, realizing what she intends to do. Felicia thinks it is a great idea and worth a try. Rina explains that the hall is so full of magic or that if she can collect its power, she believes she can successfully cast the spell. She reassures her transformed friends that she will turn them both back to normal. Julian mutters to himself, wondering if helping those two is worth it, but he concedes that his personal issues with Shaun are irrelevant to this matter. Rina stands before the monsters, telling them not to move. She admits to herself that this is her first time using such large-scale magic and that she needs to calm down. Her hands are visibly trembling as she focuses on her goal of saving them. Just then, Henry steps forward and firmly grabs her trembling hand. Rina looks at him, and he gives her a reassuring smile, telling her that it is okay and that she can definitely pull this off. Henry's warm and reassuring grip calms Rina, and her trembling stops. She thanks him quietly, now filled with confidence, and declares that she can do this. She places her other hand on the wall, yelling, "Connect," as magical writing begins to glow. Power from the magic ores all over the hall begins to flow, coming together and gathering into Rina. She then unleashes the collected energy, shouting, "Restoration." Sometime later, Rina's eyes open, and she finds herself resting in Henry's arms. He looks relieved, thankful that she has regained consciousness. After saying his name, Rina's memory returns, and she frantically asks about Adele and Shaun. She looks over and is relieved to see a fully human Adele, who is sniffing back tears. Adele cries and thanks Rina for saving her, especially after she had said such terrible things. Rina then spots Shaun, also restored to his human form, being supported by Julian and Felicia. Adele apologizes, admitting she had already accepted that she would be a snake forever. Rina asks her what happened. Adele explains that right after Rina was attacked, she found out that Charles had also been injured by the monster. Felicia is shocked by this, exclaiming that she had never heard a word about it. Adele says she just happened to witness it and that Canay treated Charles's wounds. Afterward, Charles ordered everyone to keep his injury a secret, saying he didn't want to worry anyone. Adele continues, saying that after Felicia had left the party, Canay suggested they all go to the Eastern Dungeon. Charles readily agreed, so the rest of them had no choice but to follow. In that dungeon, they found a small, red stone. To everyone's horror, Charles then happily swallowed it. Rina and Julian are shocked, asking why he would do that. Adele says she doesn't know, but she remembers Charles mentioning something about being able to absorb power with it. Adele finishes her story, explaining that after that incident, they returned to this dungeon. It was then that the monster attacked them, and when she next awoke, she had been turned into a snake. She apologizes, saying she doesn't know what happened to Charles and Canay. As Henry thanks her for the information, Julian looks at the wall in dismay, realizing all the precious magic ores have turned into a plain stone wall. Shaun immediately starts complaining, worrying about being charged for the loss of national assets and declaring he won't pay a single penny. He then angrily blames Rina, shouting that it's her fault for not being strong enough and needing to rely on objects. Henry tries to intervene, but Rina calmly diffuses the situation, telling Shaun not to worry and that she will take responsibility for using the ores. Suddenly, a new voice smoothly interrupts, calling Rina's actions wonderful and sarcastically praising Saint Rina for disabling all the magic ores. A man with blonde hair and a cruel smile steps forward. Rina recognizes him as Charles, but his eyes are glowing red. He mocks Rina, saying that thanks to her gullible act of saving these two incompetent humans, the summoning circle's effects have vanished. He is now completely freed from the dungeon and can confidently leave in his new body. Rina insists that isn't the real Charles, who would never say such things. Shaun, however, starts yelling at Charles for calling him incompetent. The possessed Charles simply tells him to shut up. Rina realizes the horrifying truth. Charles is being possessed by the Angus monster. Charles just lets out a maniacal laugh and snaps his fingers, causing a massive, snarling shadow wolf to erupt from the ground. He gestures to it, mockingly asking if Shaun doesn't look cooler in this form. The possessed Charles says that although he was fine with just killing them, he's in a good mood, so he'll let the black wolf play with them instead. Henry immediately attacks the wolf with his sword, but Rina watches in horror as the wound heals instantly. Julian notes that swords won't work, and Adele warns Felicia that magic is pointless as well. Charles confirms this, explaining that the wolf is part of him and cannot be harmed by magic or swords. Canay, who is now standing beside him, adds that to defeat it, they would need a seal made of magic or the blood of the king, neither of which they possess. Rina shouts to Canay, asking if she is being mind-controlled and pleading with her to come to her senses. Charles tells Canay it is time to go, and she quietly agrees. Canay turns to Rina with an empty smile, repeating, "Come to my senses?" She claims that she is the sane one and this world is what's insane. She says this is all just a nightmare she needs to wake up from. Rina realizes with horror that talking to her is useless. As Canay says, "Goodbye, Miss Saint," and turns to leave, Rina dashes after her, begging her to wait. The shadow wolf lunges to block Rina's path. Henry shouts her name and leaps in front of her, taking the attack himself. Rina screams as Henry is thrown back, and she rushes to his side, seeing he is injured and needs healing fast. As they are distracted, the possessed Charles, whose hand is dripping blood from Henry's earlier counterattack, speaks to the monster's shadow. The shadow asks where he will go. Charles replies that he is going north to the royal capital to see a precious friend and ensure that this traitorous friend suffers the same fate he did. With a final, chilling later, Rina, he and Kane disappear, leaving behind only the memory of the picture book's prophecy about the monster torn in four, awaiting the 7 dragons. Rina looking distressed as she recalls being banished from the hero's party by her childhood friend, Charles. She remembers being attacked by a strange monster in Angus's dungeon. The story for Chapter 8, titled Henry, starts now. Rina recounts how Henry arrived in town to investigate the suspicious actions of the hero's party. This led to Rina reuniting with Henry, her other childhood friend, for the first time in 5 years. She then remembers Henry vanishing after saying he was heading to the royal capital. Finally, Rina recalls her next encounter with Charles, only to find he had been possessed by that same monster from Angus's dungeon. In the present, the giant black wolf monster lets out a terrifying growl. A party member wonders aloud what they can do since both swords and magic seem ineffective against it. Another character curses, frustrated that Charles left them with such a troublesome creature. But Henry speaks up, insisting there is still something they can do. He reminds the group that Kane had told them the monster could be defeated with either magic ores or the blood of the king. Henry looks serious and reveals that his father is His Majesty the King. Rina, looking shocked, responds that she thought she had already used up all the magic ores in the area. Henry clarifies he isn't talking about magic ores but is instead talking about blood, explaining that this means half of his own blood is royal. He then admits he never intended to hide it, but he is the illegitimate child of the king, and he points suddenly, telling Rina to look at something. Rina and the others are stunned by this revelation, with Rina shouting in disbelief that the king is Henry's father. The group's attention turns to the black wolf's foot, which is visibly and slightly injured. Henry points this out to Rina, explaining that the injury must be from when the monster attacked him earlier and was splattered by his blood. This proves that his royal blood is effective against it. The bespectacled man with the group watches this exchange intently. Henry declares that they have no choice but to use his blood. The bespectacled man sighs, addressing Sir Henry. He says it's pointless to try and stop him, as Henry always pushes himself too hard. He then suggests that Henry might be able to use a particular item that he keeps in his pocket. Henry looks down, wondering if the man is referring to this item. Henry confirms the man's suggestion as he pulls out a silver dagger. He explains that this dagger has been passed down through the royal family for many generations. Henry continues, saying he always carried it as proof of his royal lineage and notes that now it finally looks like it will be useful. The bespectacled man agrees, adding that silver is rumored to have the power to seal demons, so the dagger might be special. Henry then turns to Rina, laying out a plan. He tells her he is counting on her to use her restoration magic to separate Shaun from the monster, and he asks her to let him handle the rest. Rina looks at him with determination, agreeing to the plan and saying she trusts him. She promises to heal Henry's wounds as soon as the fight is over. The rest of the party prepares for the fight, shouting that they will buy Henry time until Rina's magic is ready. The dark-haired woman in the party charges forward, magic swirling violently around her as she yells for the monster to bring it. The other party members look on, ready for battle, as the bespectacled man shouts a warning that the black wolf is coming straight for Sir Henry. In a moment of distress, Rina clenches her fist and thinks to herself that she doesn't actually have enough power left to cast restoration magic. Henry looks over at Rina, who nods in response, all while she inwardly admits she lacks the power, but Rina continues her thought, revealing that she had stored some of her power in her pendant just for an emergency like this. She holds the glowing pendant, thinking that by using it, she can cast her restoration magic at least one more time. The monster roars and fires a powerful beam of dark energy, forcing Henry to grit his teeth and brace himself for the incoming attack. Rina clenches her hand tightly around the glowing pendant as she unleashes all of its stored power. She casts her restoration magic. A brilliant light flashes as the spell successfully separates the monster from Shaun's body. The bespectacled man shouts that they are separated and yells for Henry, telling him he's counting on him. Rina and the dark-haired woman look on as light shines from the scene. Henry leaps through the air, plunging the royal silver dagger deep into the monster with a loud Henry stands holding the dagger as the monster's shadowy form sizzles and dissolves before him. He remarks that the dagger truly does have the power to seal demons. Nearby, another woman rushes to the side of the fallen Shaun, calling out his name. Shaun groans in response, and the woman cries out, overwhelmed with relief that he has been saved. The bespectacled man sighs, also looking relieved, while Rina rushes forward, stating that she needs to treat Henry's wound. Henry smiles warmly at Rina, saying he is glad that things went well. He insists that it is all thanks to her that they were able in defeating the Black Wolf. Rina looks back at Henry, apologizing for making him do something so reckless and thanking him for his hard work. Just then, a black cat, Millie, suddenly jumps onto Rina's shoulder. The cat meows, observing that it looks like they are all done. A closing note explains that perhaps because Angus's monster possessed Charles and left the dungeon itself has returned to normal, and peace has finally been restored to the town. Later, Rosalie, the guild receptionist, tells Rina that everyone in town is incredibly grateful to her for exterminating the monster in the dungeon. Jacob, the guild master, stands beside her and adds that there is also a guild in the royal capital, so Rina can rely on them if anything happens. A caption clarifies that the entire group will now travel to the royal capital to report everything about Angus's monster and Charles. Rina smiles and thanks Jacob for looking after her during her time there. Jacob looks slightly flustered and asks what she means by that. He reminds her that she is coming back, isn't she? He tells her they have kept her room exactly as she left it, waiting for her return. Rosalie smiles, noting that Rina will be with Henry and cheerfully wishes her the best. Rina looks touched by their words and assures them that of course, she will definitely come back. As the group prepares to leave, Rina looks back at the town, thinking about how Jacob, Rosalie, and all the townspeople have become a place where she truly belongs. She vows to herself that she will definitely return to this place once everything is over. Henry stands with the rest of the party, asking Rina if she has finished saying her goodbyes. Rina thinks that when she does come back, she hopes Charles will be there with them too, safe and sound. Henry smiles and says, "Well then, let's head out." Rina turns toward the road and replies, "Well then, I'm off." As they walk, the dark-haired woman informs Rina that the very first thing they must do when they arrive at the royal capital is report directly to the crown prince. She acknowledges that she knows Rina wants to look for Charles as soon as possible, but this duty must come first. Rina looks a bit surprised by this but nods and says it's okay, she understands. Rina then struggles with her bag, which seems to wriggle on its own, and she insists that she can carry it herself. Henry notices her struggling and asks if the bag is really that heavy. He smiles and offers to take it for her, saying it looks pretty heavy. He mentions that he doesn't have any bags of his own since he is having Luke carry them with the Dragon Knights. Rina looks grateful and accepts his offer, thanking him for carrying it. Rina then asks Henry if this means the crown prince is his older brother. Henry confirms that this is pretty much correct. The dark-haired woman interjects, stating that this situation is no longer something they can handle by themselves. She explains that this may now be an important issue that is directly related to the royal family of the kingdom. Henry just laughs and says that's right, he is his own person. Rina looks surprised by this interaction. The woman tells Henry that, speaking from her position, she would appreciate it if he were slightly more mindful of his status. Henry simply repeats what he said before, he is just himself. He insists that this fact won't change, even if his father is the king and his older brother is the crown prince. Rina smiles, ready to continue their journey, and says, "Well then, let's go guys." But a voice calls out, "Hey Rina, are you leaving now?" Shaun appears, looking smug and healed. He taunts Rina, asking if she's really going to the royal capital and sarcastically calling it a big promotion for Miss Saint. Rina calmly asks Shaun where Adele is, noting she's glad to see he is doing well. Shaun scoffs, revealing that Adele dumped him. He complains bitterly that this happened while he's at the lowest point in his life, having been stripped of everything and not even receiving a reward. He then adds that there was no way he'd stay with such an annoying woman anyway. Shaun continues to taunt Rina, accusing her of planning to climb the social ladder by cozying up to the people at the royal palace. He says he always knew she was a devious woman. Henry looks furious at these insults, his hand twitching as he begins to threaten Shaun. Shaun ignores him and turns his anger toward Charles, calling him a wishy-washy hero who manipulated everyone and caused all this trouble, only to end up getting possessed by a monster. Shaun declares the whole situation is laughable. He then tells Rina that if she finds Charles, she should punch him for him, that is, if Charles is even still alive. Rina holds up a hand, telling Henry to wait. She turns to Shaun with a serious expression, saying she completely understands his feelings, but she then says there's something she wants him to tell her. Suddenly, Rina swings her fist and punches Shaun directly in the face, sending him crashing hard onto the ground. Holding her fist, Rina calmly asks Shaun if that is how he wanted her to punch Charles. She adds that, as a healer, she really has no clue how to properly punch someone. Shaun, sitting on the ground, suddenly bursts out laughing. He tells Rina, Not bad, and with that said, he wishes them farewell. Rena holds her stinging hand, admitting that it hurts but also that it felt great, as Henry smiles beside her. The rest of the party looks on as Rena says, "Yeah." Henry turns to Rena with a warm smile and asks, "Shall we go, Rena?" The group finally arrives at their destination, the Hirtia Kingdom's royal capital. The city is alive with activity as women in beautiful dresses throw flower petals, celebrating the flower festival and offering blessings for Hirtia. Rena looks on at the grand city, ready for the next part of her journey. Rena and her companions arriving at the Mage Corps headquarters in the royal capital, but they are met with a shocking sight. The entrance to the building is completely destroyed and crumbling. Rena stares in disbelief, wondering what on earth could have happened. The story then flashes back to a few hours earlier. As the group walked through the bustling capital, a city Henry noted he hadn't seen in a while, Rena offered to take her bag back from him. Henry checked if she was sure, reminding her how heavy it was. Just then, the bespectacled man, Julian, approached them with a message. He announced that he had just received a reply from the royal palace, and their audience with the crown prince would be arranged as soon as possible. Rena was thrilled by this news. Rena insisted on taking her bag, saying it was hers to carry. As she grabbed it, she felt a rustling inside and was stunned when it suddenly burst open. Her two cats, Millie and Mike, leaped out, followed by a small chirping bird. Henry looked down, realizing the two cats must have tagged along for the journey. Rena, now holding Millie, remarked that it was no wonder the bag had been so heavy. Their plans were interrupted when a messenger bird delivered an update to Felicia, the dark-haired woman. She explained it was a troublesome summons from her boss, who wanted her to bring Rena, and also requested the presence of Count Verdun, which is Henry if possible. Julian decided he would go ahead to confirm their audience with the king, while Henry agreed to accompany Rena and Felicia. Felicia suggested they stop by her house on the way to drop off their bags. Rena agreed and asked Felicia what her boss was like. Felicia revealed his name was Lestwick, and he was the chief of the Mage Corps. Felicia elaborated that the Royal Mage Corps is a group of magic researchers. She described Chief Lestwick as an elf who wields powerful and unique abilities. She also shared that he had endured a difficult past when elven and demonic magic was considered evil, and it was his respectable conduct that helped improve their reputation. Rena reflected on this, realizing the kingdom had a dark history of deporting elves and demons, and felt excited to meet such an amazing person. Julian confirmed that the chief was very trustworthy and also a close friend of Crown Prince Claude. Rena looked forward to her first meeting with an elf, but Felicia then warned her to be careful. Rena was confused, so Felicia explained that while Lestwick is a great guy, he's also a major weirdo, whose eccentricity is especially terrible. A shocked Rena asked Henry if this was true, but he pointedly told her not to ask him. Felicia then pointed to a large building, identifying it as the Mage Corps headquarters. Inside, a receptionist directed Felicia to the chief's room, noting he was waiting. As Rena, Henry, and Felicia walked down the hall, Felicia pointed out the correct room. At that very instant, a massive explosion, boom, erupted from the doorway. Felicia cried out in shock, while two other mages down the hall calmly remarked that it sounded like the chief was at it again. This brings the story back to the present, with Rena staring at the destroyed room. From within the smoke, a small elf boy appeared, dusting himself off and muttering that he had failed. Felicia identified him as the chief, and the boy smiled, greeting Felicia, Henry, and Rena. He told Rena he had been looking forward to meeting her. Rena was completely stunned, realizing this little boy was the chief. The boy floated in the air and introduced himself as Lestwick. Rena politely introduced herself, privately thinking he really might be a weirdo, and remembered that elves have long lives so their appearance is misleading. And furious Felicia demanded to know what he did. Lestwick explained he wanted to welcome Rena by summoning a phoenix, but the spiritual beast got angry and exploded. Felicia promptly smacked him, scolding him for trying to make a spiritual beast do tricks. Henry dryly commented that Lestwick seemed well. Felicia, exasperated, pointed at the wreckage and asked what he planned to do, warning he would bankrupt the crown prince. Lestwick casually said he'd get it repaired and make his dear friend pay for any overages. Watching this, Rena felt bad for Felicia and wondered if the chief was always like this. She then offered to use her restoration magic to fix the room. Felicia worried it would be too hard on her, but Rena insisted it was fine and wouldn't take much power. Lestwick gratefully accepted her offer. Rena began to chant and unleashed her restoration magic, filling the room with a brilliant light. When the light faded, Rena sighed in relief that the spell worked. Lestwick looked at her, his heart thumping, and praised her superb magic. He thanked her for the wonderful demonstration, admitting that while he'd heard rumors, her power was truly terrific. Felicia then cut in, pressing Lestwick for the real reason he had summoned them. Lestwick cheerfully replied that he just wanted to meet Saint Rena. Felicia exploded, yelling that he should have said so sooner and should at least thank Rena for fixing his room. Lestwick calmed her down and added that he also wanted to share information related to Felicia's report. Lestwick sat down and began to speak about Kenneth. He explained that his interest in other worlds led him to speak with her many times. He knew she had suffered greatly upon arriving but thought she was recovering as she started working as a healer, especially since she smiled more when they met. However, Lestwick revealed the reality was different. He had learned that the national church attendant assigned to Kane was absolute scum, who constantly tormented her. Rena was horrified at the thought of Kane suffering so much. Lestwick then revealed this same attendant was the one who accompanied Kane to Angus, after which both of them vanished together. Rena feared something terrible had happened, a possibility Lestwick confirmed. Rena reflected on Kane's suffering. She thought about how, despite her own reincarnation, she was never lonely because she had Henry and Charles. She recalled Kane's desperate words about the world being insane and wondered where both Charles and Kane were now. Felicia noticed Rena's determination and asked if she wanted to start searching for them immediately, and Rena confirmed she did. Later, Henry brought Rena a message from Julian. He smiled, announcing their audience with the Crown Prince was officially set for the very next day. Felicia was shocked by the speed, noting they must be receiving preferential treatment. Rena looked on, full of hope. The next day, Rena, Henry, and Felicia were guided through the palace. Rena's heart pounded nervously. Lestwick was also there to wish them luck. An attendant confirmed their audience and showed them into the throne room. Rena entered and performed a deep curtsy, introducing herself as Rena Glan. She thought about how the man on the throne was not only the future king but also Henry's older brother. The Crown Prince thanked her for coming. He addressed her as Saint Rena, told her to raise her head, and stated that he would now listen to her story. Rena stands before Crown Prince Claude. He formally greets Saint Rena, mentioning that he often hears about her activities through Felicia. Rena, with Henry by her side, replies that she is honored. Claude then expresses his relief that Henry is also safe, and Henry apologizes for causing him to worry. The Crown Prince then gestures toward a nearby door, explaining that he has a room prepared for them where they can speak privately without being overheard. As they enter the secure room, Rena and her companions are surprised to find Chief Lestwick already there. Claude explains that he asked Lestwick to join them so they could listen to the report together. Lestwick winks, remarking that he couldn't possibly refuse a request from his close friend. Felicia silently observes how shrewd he is, while Rena notes how close the two must be. With everyone settled, Claude asks Rena to explain in detail everything that occurred in Angus. Rena begins her report, stating that the monster they were sent to investigate in Angus's dungeon was actually an ancient creature that had been sealed away a very long time ago. She continues, explaining that this monster manipulated the healer Kane and then successfully possessed the hero, Charles. Claude listens intently, remarking that a monster capable of possessing a hero must be an intelligent one, while Henry adds that it is a nasty opponent. Lestwick interjects, adding that the monster also trapped them, tricked them into removing its seal, and then escaped the dungeon. Felicia then reports that the monster appears to hold a considerable grudge against the kingdom's royal family. This makes Claude recall an old tale passed down in his family about a hero king who defeated a terrible monster, sealing it away using his own blood in a summoning circle. Rena confirms this, saying the legend strongly resembles a monster storybook they discovered in the Angus library. She recounts a line from the book about a monster, split up into 4 pieces, that awaits a child's visit to the 7 dragons. Henry points out that the 7 dragons is the royal family's crest, which makes him certain this incident is connected to them. Claude summarizes the situation, concluding that the monster resents being sealed away by the king long ago. He admits the story is hard to believe but agrees they must investigate it. Rena then anxiously asks what will happen to Charles and Kane. Claude explains that they are currently considered criminals who committed major felonies. However, he clarifies that if their investigation proves their actions were due to the monster's manipulation, it changes everything, and their fate will depend on what Rena's group can uncover. Rena understands the weight on their shoulders and promises that they will find the two and uncover the truth. The Crown Prince asks them to handle the investigation with discretion. He explains that as the future king, he cannot join them directly but will offer his support. He then tasks Lestwick with assisting them, telling him to submit any expenses later. Rena thanks him and warns Claude to be careful, as the monster declared it was heading for the royal capital. Claude then asks about Rena's injuries. She assures him she is all better but reveals a lingering side effect. A bit of the monster's magic remains, allowing her to understand some animals she touches. Lestwick is immediately fascinated by this, and Henry confirms he has seen Rena talking to her cats. Learning the cats are at Felicia's house, Lestwick gets excited and decides to see it for himself. He uses magic, and with a pop, Rena's black cat, Millie, is suddenly summoned into the room, landing in Rena's arms. Millie is terrified, meowing and shouting about an elf and what's happening. Rena tries to calm him down, scolding him for being rude inside the castle. Lestwick just laughs, delighted that she really can talk to cats. Rena apologizes for the ruckus, while Felicia finds it strange that Rena is the only one attacked by the monster who still shows any influence. Crown Prince Claude steps forward, remarking that it just looks like an ordinary cat. As he reaches out his hand, Millie suddenly hisses aggressively at him. Claude flinches back in surprise, and Rena cries out Millie's name. Rena quickly apologizes, explaining Millie seems to be in a bad mood. Claude brushes it off, saying it's just too bad the cat doesn't like him. He then concludes the meeting, stating he must return to his duties. As he turns to leave, Rena calls out, asking him to remember his promise regarding Charles. Claude pauses and assures her he will, telling her he expects great things from her. After he leaves, Rena suggests to Henry that they visit the library. She reasons that since Lestwick and Felicia are handling the magical search for Charles, they could look for more books about the royal family and demons, like the one they found in Angus. Henry, however, immediately declines. Rena is confused, but Henry explains that it's unlikely any scandalous information about the royal family would be in a public library. He also points out that even the Crown Prince didn't know the legend, so it must be well hidden. Rena agrees and wonders what to do next. Henry then surprises her by suggesting they go into town, reminding her that the flower festival is currently happening. Rena's spirits lift, and she eagerly agrees to go. At the festival, Rena is amazed by the huge, bustling crowds, remarking that it's just what she'd expect from the royal capital. Henry explains that everyone goes all out because the festival only happens once every 20 years. Rena asks about the festival's purpose, and Henry tells her it celebrates the wife of the first king. He explains that the first queen came from another world and supported the king when he was young. She gave birth to his heir but passed away during the flower season, and over time, the people came to revere her as a goddess. Rena is touched, thinking she must have been a wonderful person. As they walk, festival-goers throw flower petals on them, offering blessings for the festival and also for the two lovers. Henry smiles, noting they've been mistaken for a couple. He then playfully places a flower crown on Rena's head, telling her it suits her. A blushing Rena tells him to stop lying. Henry continues to explain that the festival lasts for a month and that the girls blessing everyone are messengers of the goddess. The event concludes with a ceremony on the final day's full moon, where a member of the royal family and a high-ranking noble's daughter play the roles of the king and goddess. Rena asks if Henry will be the one playing the king, but he clarifies that his older brother, the crown prince, will do it. Rena suddenly grows quiet. She reflects internally on how chaotic things have been since Angus and how they haven't had a moment to just talk. She thinks back to the meeting, realizing how natural Henry looked debating with the crown prince. It made her see that he isn't just the Henry she grew up with, but a true member of the royal family. Henry notices her quiet mood and points out that she looked very stiff and nervous during the audience. He gently advises her not to force everything onto herself, smiling as he reminds her that he is there to help whenever she needs it. Rena looks at him, touched, and thanks him. She thinks about how glad she is for this time with him and for him saving her. As more people pass by, blessing the happy couple, Rena wonders why everyone keeps saying that. Henry then shares another legend. It's said that couples who get married during the year of the flower festival will remain happy forever. Rena's heart thumps as she repeats the word, married? As more people bless them, Rena tries to correct them, saying they aren't a couple. Suddenly, a cloaked figure steps in front of them. The person smirks and addresses Miss Saint, asking if she would like a flower. Rena looks at the person's face and freezes in shock, crying out, "Can you